Okay, breathe in, breathe out all the bad books. Let's just let it all out to make room for all the good books. More positive. Let the negative out. More positive. Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Crystal and this is Books Forever After, where I sit on my floor, we talk about everything and all things books and nothing but the books. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hello, hi, how are you? We're gonna talk about some negative things just to make room for the positive things to go through. So it's gonna be nothing but up after this. So before we get started with that, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe so that way you get notified every time I post. And as always, I will have my links down below, down in the description box, which would be my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Amazon wishlist. Alright, with that all out of the way, let's get into it. We got 14 books to talk about. Now I will have link chapters to this video so you can kind of like jump around. We're gonna go through that. So first, I didn't want to make two videos because I was trying not to be negative. I don't want to talk about these books already, but I'm sure these kind of videos can be good and bad. It's good to see like, okay, camaraderie, I also don't like those books, but a lot of times it's like, oh, you don't like those books? Maybe I do, because I know maybe we have opposite taste. So sometimes you can get book recs as well. And if you did like these books, I'm sorry, this is nothing against you. This is just my humble opinion. Okay. This does not mean that, you know, I'm not judging anybody that likes these books. This is just my opinion and my experience with these books. So, all right, is that enough? And the disclaimer? Okay, let's get started. All right, so as I mentioned, I think I have about 7 for each. And so first we're gonna break this into, like I said, sections and chapters, because I want to talk about the disappointing and then the worst, and I didn't want to make 2 videos. So we're going to talk about the disappointing books first. These are books that I was looking so forward to, or anticipated reads or new releases, and they were disappointing. They didn't live up to what I was expecting. And then we have the worst books. We have kind of very similar as a disappointing book, but it was like a bad book. And not necessarily like a bad book, but just a bad experience. Not to my taste. In my humble opinion, no, I don't recommend these at all. So of course, any books on this list, I do not recommend. However, if you and I have differing tastes, you might enjoy these. So take that what you will. All right, first up is Wicked Intentions by Elizabeth Hoyt. Now, I believe April and I, we have a mood reader book club that we read either historical romance or a fantasy romance, what have you, every other month. This was one of the books that I gave her the option to pick that I was really excited to read. And this is like a dark historical romance, and I didn't like it. Not in like it was a 2-star, but it was a 3-star. So this one's a 3-star. So this was a 3-star where I'm never going to reread it probably. And if the book 2, which I hear is good, and this is like a long series. I think there's like 12 books in these. Yeah. I think Notorious Pleasures is next. So whichever book is next, I'm going to read that one for 2025. And if I don't like it, then I just think either the author or that series just may not be for me. This one is kind of, the names of the characters were kind of hilarious. And this kind of follows, the heroine is in charge of this like orphanage, they're down on their luck kind of scenario. She is offered from the hero to help him solve a murder. So his mistress had died and they're trying to solve the murder and who done it. That's the gist. To be honest, I can barely recall the books that I do like. I don't recall too much about this. I do remember that the hero was like a white blonde hero with long hair, kind of like your Lucius Malfoy kind of character. It's all in Georgian time, so it's not right before Regency, so it's more in that like wigs and kind of era. Atmosphere, the one positive thing I could say is the atmosphere was very like dark, and like a gothic kind of feeling, so it hit there. But everything else with the romance and the mystery plot overwhelmed the romance to where it wasn't and if that happens, I'm like, the romance became a subplot, and that's never a favorite of mine, and the mystery plot wasn't even good enough to be disregarded as, you know, something that I could look past. With that said, and it was kind of obvious who did it, so there's also this kind of, that's all throughout the series, this is kind of like a Batman character. I didn't like it, and that's kind of why, so hopefully book 2 is better. If not, then unfortunately I will not be continuing on. However, I might still, even if book 2 isn't good, I probably would still try this author in a different series of hers, just to see, because I'm just hoping for another great, like, The Highwind Man by Kerrigan Byrne. I'm looking for another kind of author, besides Kerrigan Byrne, that's like, does dark historical romance so well, and I'm still on the hunt for that. So another disappointing read for me was Ocean of Sin and Starlight by Karina Halley. I got this as a ARC, and this is like book 2 of, I forget what the actual series is, but it was, I'll post it up here. It's the end of the day and my brain is not working. This read so much more like a novella, and to be honest, it kind of took away, like, book 1 was such a shining star. Book 1 was a Little Mermaid meets Pirates of the Caribbean retelling, and it was just so good, and I was just so disappointed with this one. It follows characters from that same similar world, and it just wasn't good. It felt very contrived. It's a dark fantasy romance, a dark romance as well. I don't know why the author keeps kind of saying doesn't want to put herself into the same kind of level as like dark romance girlies, because they might expect it to be a little bit more. I say the romance and the fantasy world is both dark, because, you know, what the hero does to the heroine, that's very dark. It felt very, the word is gratuitous. And it was, besides the one candle scene, if you know, you know, that was the only like interesting really part of it, and everything else was definitely more on the villain side of a hero, and both of them were just not great people, and the plot wasn't that great, so that's why it was really disappointing. I'm like, at least give me the characters that are great, or just more developed. There is some essay in here as well from another character. It seems to be a common theme in the other one as well, the first book. So it kind of took away from it because it didn't feel like it was needed. So it kind of came out of left field, and I don't think it was at all. It is on page, like it wasn't necessary. It wasn't serving the story or the characters really that much at all. And the next one, I was on the street team for this author. This one is The Heartbreaker by Sarah Kate. This is by the Good Brothers, I think is her newest series. This was indie published. I know recently she's gotten picked up traditionally. Her newest one is wow, I can't think of names today. I don't know, I just bought it, but I can't remember. First traditionally published, it's her newest one. It's like a Scottish contemporary romance. This one, it's kind of very, like, Salacious Players Club by this author is like one of my favorite, like, BDSM, like, dark romances, kind of like club kind of scenes. A little bit more towards the end, I was starting to see something, for me, a lack in the quality of what I know that Sarah Kate could deliver. So it just, again, it just felt, to be frank, very lazy, and this one was no stranger to that as well. I don't even want to talk about it. Oh gosh, this one was, it was trying to do the whole teach me trope without actually doing a teach me trope. Like, really, there was like one thing on put your shoes away kind of thing. And yeah, it's to teach her to be more responsible, and it was like it's so contrived. Professor student, living with your student, like really. Unfortunately, I am giving the author one more chance. So this one that I just recently bought that was traditionally published, I just feel like a lot of things have been watered down, and of course, because of that, I have decided to not be part of the street team, because I definitely don't want to be, or the ARC team, basically her street ARC team. I don't want to, if I'm not loving an author, I'm definitely not going to be, I don't want to be bringing everyone down. So I definitely don't also want to be forced to read something that I don't want to read anymore. If I do decide to pick it up later, then yeah. It was just announced that she was doing like a second generation of the Salacious Players Club, and to be honest, I'm a little apprehensive about it. I just don't, I understand that like Salacious Players Club really was, it was originally indie published and they went traditionally picked up. I don't know if it's just me as a reader not really liking the way this author's writing anymore, or maybe the author's writing has changed, or maybe me as a reader has changed on my tastes and things like that. Unfortunately, I just don't enjoy it anymore. Alright, the next one that was a disappointing read is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. Now, Dead Silence, also audiobook. Both of these I recommend to listen to the audiobook. Dead Silence, so great. Ghost Ship in Space, great. The second book, and the author is actually a librarian, which is great. She does have a third one coming up as well, but I don't know if I'm going to read it because I feel like there's a certain formula. And once you're doing a certain formula for a thriller, and it's the same kind of reason for every time, pretty much. Yes, I know, like, when you have a murder mystery or whatever, there's always going to be a murder. But in this case, there's got to be something other than the ending, because otherwise, what am I reading it for, to have it be the same reason every time? So this one was kind of like that. It was a very, very similar to book one. It's like, but at the same time, it was so boring. There was no new spin on it. I have to say the atmosphere level, she's great writing that. But besides that, the characters, okay. But truly a lot of them were like cut and paste from her first one. So far I do recommend Dead Silence by her. That one was a 4-star for me. This one, I think, to be honest, I think I rated this a 3-star. It was just so boring. So boring, do not recommend. And then the next one, I was really, really disappointed for this one. And that is A Fire in the Sky by Sophie Jordan. Now, I think I just did an unhaul video, so I haven't unhauled this one just yet. But I ordered the, first print special edition. I pre-ordered it, so excited about it. Because it's dragons, a romantasy. This is the author's adult, I want to say her first time writing adult romantasy. I know she wrote YA fantasy. I primarily recognize her name from being a historical romance author. So of course I'm like, just so you know, there's a very fine line between historical romance and fantasy romance. They have very similar kind of tropes. There's similar kind of experiences of it because of the world building can be very like historical, the time period and the jump between that can feel like it's another world. So that's why I think they're very well cohorts, historical romance and fantasy romance. However, this one, it read like YA. Even knowing that it was a YA before, I was going to give it, it wasn't even like Fourth Wing to where, yes, it's fun CW YA, but it was like upper YA with spice. This was not. This was almost middle grade, it felt like, with spice. It was kind of strange. But yeah, this is an arranged marriage, and that's all I want to say about it. Unfortunately, this was a 3-star for me and very disappointing. I'm just not going to continue. This edition, though, it's so promising. It had end papers, and it had this really cool, like, art down here that like your comic book art, so it like she moves when you roll the pages together. So I thought that was cool. Yeah, definitely definitely disappointed. So because I did have Unhold this is on my Pango. I will link that down below if you are interested in purchasing this one. All right, guys. No surprise. I mean, this one has a lot of hype and such on it. And I mean, I think April and I talked about book 2 and we definitely didn't like it. It was, book 1 was almost a 5-star. Book 2 was a 2-star for fantasy romance, for an epic fantasy romance by Sarah J. Maas. And I'm talking, of course, of House of Shadow and Flame by Sarah J. Maas. So disappointing. This was a 3-star. At least it wasn't a 2-star. Book 2 in this series of Crescent City, The House of Sky and Breath, was a 2-star. Yeah. I'm just gonna put it out there. We are still waiting for ACOTAR 6 to make room for this. Unpopular opinion. I don't know. Book 1 was so promising because it's her first time writing Edward fantasy, and it's in this different world. Obviously, I can't talk too much about this. It does kind of integrate her universe or whatever in some sort of format. And then there was just connections and just glaringly plot holes, and the characters were just not they're one level. They're very not developed at all. So very, very disappointing. I'm glad that I continued to still get that kind of closure. And there's a lot more world building that is kind of necessary, I think. It depends. It may be necessary, it may not, but it's cool to get that kind of lore and such. And that's kind of why it was a 3-star for me, is I was there for the lore. I'm hoping that it makes sense going forward and that it does mean something, because then I just feel like she's just playing games with us now. And it's very frustrating. Very frustrating. I'm thinking that if ACOTAR 6 isn't good, I'm just gonna say it for me, is I think she peaked on ACOTAR. As a reader, I'm like, and I get it, she's made her millions, she's a Sarah J. Maas doesn't care about what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. But it's really frustrating in a publishing industry. The bigger that the author gets, the quality of their writing kind of goes down. And I think maybe because they have now more weight, they don't have to have as strict editing, and they're allowed to have a little bit more freedom in that. However, I find that, and there's people that's gonna buy her books regardless, but for me, it's kind of sad that I just feel like the quality has gone down. A lot of it to me is the hero felt like, as April said, a wet blanket. No personality. Really wasn't any romance, tension or yearning kind of connection happening, so it kind of just felt gratuitous to have a romance in there. I kind of would have preferred it not to be honest. It's kind of sad to say. It took away from it, and then the plot and the characters were just very, very poor. Especially coming from book 2, which the whole plot shouldn't even happen. It made no sense. They went through all of this for it to not even matter in the end, or even make sense on why we did that. It's not great. And I just kind of wish as well that the friendship with the heroine, her friend that you do from book 1, it would have been great if there was flashbacks or things in book 3. So when you have a trilogy or something, you're always coming back to the first one. You're coming back to, as oh gosh, what's that guy say in the movies, the Screams movie? The third book, the third movie means something. It's always referring back, as coming full circle to the first book. And this did and did not in a lot of ways. I kind of would have preferred a little bit more flashbacks with her friend that had passed away, learning things about what the friend had said or done. But you didn't get to see that. And I think that was a problem that I had with this book, is you just got told things. And yeah, that things, you're not always going to get to be shown things, but I think that's what was happening, is the groundwork isn't being done. Okay, that was a long rant. Such a disappointment. I'm still debating on even if I want to keep these. But I'm just hoping for the day, for this one especially, there was some lore connections, but I just don't know if I want to reread them. I really don't. It's kind of sad. I might have to get rid of my whole Crescent City series. I don't know. At least Throne of Glass and ACOTAR are good. That's enough of that. That's that one. That's hopefully we get ACOTAR 6 this year. We'll see. Oh, technically it's 5. ACOTAR 4. ACOTAR 5? Yeah, because there was a novella. There's 3 books, and then the sister's book, there was a novella. So technically, it's book 5, to be honest. Because a novella is a half book. It's not the main book. All right, the next one. Now, I don't have my copy anymore because I sold this on Pango. It went straight up. And that is book 2. This one is called The Throne of Honor and Blood by J. Bree. Now, book 1 was a 6-star last year. So this one was so disappointing. April and I also did a buddy read on this one. And it was so one of my highly anticipated books this year, and it was just not great. Obviously it's book 2, so I can't tell more about it, but yeah, really disappointed. And I think a lot of it had to do with the writing. There's a lot of grammars as well. And I understand it's indie published, but no, this was like glaringly obvious, and it was already delayed because of things she had to change. Definitely tell there were some errors, and it was things just didn't make sense on it. And then also the romance part of it, the slow burn, slow build part of the romance fell flat. There was no build. The hero just felt very one-level character again. Yes, he doesn't like explicitly say, he didn't grovel at all. Yes, he used his actions in some sort of capacity, but not enough, in my opinion, to really, really atone for what he did to the heroine and to her people in the book 1. So it really just wasn't worth my. I'm just so disappointed. I don't even know if I'm gonna read book 3. I think it's gonna be the final book. Hopefully it gets released this year. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I want to read it, so I'm hoping April doesn't want to read it for book club. I really don't know if I want to read this one at all. It was really, really disappointing. So disappointing. And then there was just parts in the action scenes in the final one that just didn't make sense. It was really developmental editing that should have happened, and I think that's also why it was so frustrating. It just wasn't dots being connected, even in the action scenes. I had to reread a couple times because I'm like, wait, did I miss something? No, it was like really was that. I wasn't going crazy. It just didn't make sense. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong here. And I still do want to read her Bonds That Tie series. It's Her White Shoes. It's definitely not like an epic. I don't think it's like an epic fantasy, but it's more, more romance heavy side of the fantasy romance genre. So I'm looking forward to that. So I do want to try that one. I don't know if I'll read it this year, but I definitely want to at least read that one by her. All right. So I don't know if I did premises very well for that one. I know I probably didn't really talk about the last one, but those are all the disappointments. We are 30 minutes in, y'all. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be a long one. So just take your little intermission break, get a snack, get a drink, come on back, and let's just talk about the worst books I read. So these ones are the worst. These ones I wasn't really in general looking forward to reading these. These were just, in my opinion, just bad. Bad experience, bad writing, whatever. One of these I really, really hated. You probably already know if you've been watching me any sort of time this year. Alright, so number 1, to be honest, this was a disappointment more than a worse book, but it was like, I struggled so bad to read book 2, and that is Dragonfly and Amber by Diana Gabaldon. Now, I was reading this series, or trying to read the series. Jen was hosting the Outlander read-along, that she was going through the whole series. It's a long series, and these books are chunky. And this is really a historical fiction series. It's not really, there is like a romance subplot, but it is really historical fiction. And that's how Jen has put it. It's really slice of life. You're following this family and their saga. That's really what it is. Now, book 1, if you want a little bit of like more of the romance part, I recommend just reading book 1. That's kind of what happened. And so I fell off the wagon for the group pretty quickly. Book 2 was painful. I think I'm going to just continue watching the show. It's on Stars, and I think some of the episodes are actually on Netflix too. So I really enjoyed the show, and I did watch the show first before I realized it was a book. And in my opinion, I think it's so much better served as on TV, on a show, than it is as a book. I love historical fiction. I used to love reading historical fiction all back in the day, when I first started reading historical fiction back in high school. And I think I much prefer my historical romance, really that niche, the most. All right, next one. This is gonna really pain a lot of people, but this is Painted Scars by Neva Altaj, or Altaj. Now Jen has told me, she DM'd me on Instagram. She's like, I hope you just give it another shot. Try book 2, book 1. Even the author said wasn't her best. So I'm like, okay. So I DNF'd this at like 40%, 50%. And I think this is a mafia romance, arranged marriage. The hero is in a wheelchair because of like he was shot, and so he's learning to try to walk with a cane and such again. However, because he's like the head honcho of the mafia, he's trying to keep it like kind of down low. He hires I think the heroine's dad was doing some stealing from the guy, stealing from him and doing, does his like accountant kind of thing. And so in order to not kill him, he kind of forces the heroine to marry him, kind of like a fake marriage kind of thing. But I think they actually do get married. I think my main problem with this book was it just wasn't developed enough. The romance, the writing just felt very like I said, telling me, not showing me, and just very like succinct to the point, but to the point where it's like, I did this, they're going to this. Very simple sentences that just need a little bit more description, need a little more development, and it just wasn't up to par of what I prefer. But now I don't know if I will try book 2. I know Jen recommended that I give this author another chance. I do believe I think I got this book on one of your Stuff Your Kindle days, and I read this for an Unstuff Your Kindle vlog. So I do have book 2 that I think that I also got for a Stuff Your Kindle day for free. So I may try this again. Maybe I'll just do a second chance. Giving authors the last chance or a second chance or whatever it is. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. We have 5 more left. Okay, so we have Thieves of Monsters. Oh yeah, this one is one I think I rated 2 stars. I read it. It's bad monsters, but it was just bad. I'm not a fan. This is my first time reading Cleo Evans, and it was just bad. It's like a gods and monsters kind of thing, like a Greek gods kind of scenario. I think it's a white shoes. The heroine is kind of like Persephone with the Hades dogs, basically, and each one of them, it's one of the heads, but they turn into a human. And I don't know, it was bad. You can imagine that they can morph into the dog during smexy times. So yeah, it was bad. I'm not happy I read it, but I'm glad that it's read, so I can get it off my Kindle. So there's that. All right, next was another Mood Reader book club read. Wow, April, I don't know, what are we doing? We picked some duds this year, unfortunately. So this one is a dark historical romance. Again, I'm trying to find the dark historical romances that I love. I love dark and or gothic romances, and I love it when it's done so well. Ever since I read The Highwayman by Kara Byrne, that's just a niche that I love. We also read this in September when we had the romance readathon, which is like the dark, like the gothic theme, Phantom of the Opera theme with the focus on gothic romance. So this was disappointing. Now, I think April loved this one. I did not. I have heard that this author can be hit or miss with her books, kind of very similar to Eloisa James. So I do have Claiming the Courtesan that my friend Autumn gave me. So I do plan on hopefully buddy reading this with her. So hopefully this is better. But yeah, this one was not the greatest for me. It's very, very dark. And I think the main problem I had with it as well is there is a villain in here. There's attempted essay and things like that. And he was the mustache twirly kind of villain. And I I mean, this is the bodice ripper era kind of historical romance, and I'm finding that maybe I don't like those as much anymore. And this one, he just, the villain just felt very, very mustache twirly. Especially the last line he says before he gets unalived was very, very unnecessary. Very unnecessary. And a lot of this was contrived, I felt like. The atmosphere was there. This one kind of follows a heroine who gets kidnapped by this man's uncle. The hero is like I think he's like a duke or something. Not a duke. A marquess? Maybe? I don't know. However, he's always been, oh gosh. He's been restricted all his life, been basically kind of like his uncle's like his guardian, and he's basically, because he's been, his uncle has put him off as like some kind of like mental illness or whatever, that he hasn't really had anyone to advocate for him. So he's been taken advantage by his uncle so that his uncle could kind of have been in charge of his finances and things like that. And so I think my main problem with this one was both the hero and the heroine were victims, and they stayed victims for a lot of the time, where it didn't really make sense, and they didn't like get stronger together. It was just, and the hero was also a virgin hero as well, so I think a lot of it, I think the heroine was like a widow, I think at one point. I can't remember if she was, but like I said, I just didn't enjoy this one. This was a 2-star for me. I didn't enjoy it. I think it almost was going to be a 3-star, but it's just, I think the writing wasn't my favorite either, the way it was done, and yeah, it was just not that connection there. So yeah. All right. Top 3. Now, I'm going to go on a tangent on this one. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But my top number 3, these were the worst of the worst for me. The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. Again, controversial. I know a lot of people love this author's writing, and to be honest, this book has made me perhaps not want to continue. Maybe, I don't know. She's so beloved. She had like a rom-com quality while also being very emotional. My opinion though is books that are marketed as rom-com and you don't provide content warnings, when you have that kind of spin on it, you're marketing yourself as a rom-com, but then you're disguising, it's almost very insidious, because dark romance, at least you know what you're getting into when you're reading a dark romance. You know there's going to be content warning, so you can prepare yourself. This one, I'm going to have to say, I was reading this with B. She was doing an Abby Jimenez read along. Now, when I read this was probably not in the great part of around the season of my life. It was around a certain instance of a anniversary date of something very personal to me, and the thing that was very personal to me was a trigger in this book, because it was a car accident. There is a car accident scene in here, and that's somebody. Because of that, I wasn't expecting that to be a trigger warning. Before this, I didn't think I had any. I think death of a child and this was my trigger. Now, it probably wouldn't have been that bad if it wasn't at the scene of the crime or the accident. So because of that visual was very off-putting. To be honest, this put me in a very bad funk for a few days, and I have never cried on a book, and this is when I cried, because it put me in such a bad headspace. And because of this, it made me so angry at the same time. I feel like and this is where I need somebody to confirm, because I borrowed this from the library, so I don't have the physical copy. I don't recall there being content warnings of a car accident scene. So because of that, yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, it's yeah, so besides that, that was really why. I almost wanted to rate this a 1 star, but I think I rated it a 2 star. This just wasn't well written, and I understand that the author wrote this after the second one that's in this official because it gives context to the heroine story in that book. But this one was like friends to lovers, and this is the part of friends to lovers. This is why it doesn't work for me sometimes. I usually love a friends to lovers, but this is why I don't like it in contemporary. It just wasn't done well here as well. It felt like it was trying to balance being a rom-com and then also being emotional romance with some substance, and it did not do that. I felt like it was trauma for the sake of trauma, and I very, very heavily dislike when authors do that. It feels very manipulative, and not in a manipulative of a, this is me expressing my art and doing a plot twist. This just felt very insidious as a plot twist, you know what I mean? Like, it just did not do well. No. So yeah. So I think besides that, I probably would have just rated this a 3 star. Nothing special. But no, this was very bad. Yeah. Whew. Well, after that one, let's go for the last 2 here. So this one I have on hold already. This one is Beast by Judith Ivory. This was a 1 star. This was almost made my top worst book. This is not the list you want to be top on. Let's just say this. This was a Beauty and the Beast retelling set in like the 1910s kind of era. Just horrible bad writing. There was too much talk about whatever that agree, I don't know, that word. I was so tired of hearing it. It was so bad. The heroine was so annoying. The hero as well. They are just not great people. If you want to know about this, I did not want to read a romance about people that were just horrible. Both of them. Not great. Not great. I mean, even at one point, the heroine wanted to tell other people, like her parents and this group at a get-together, that she was unfaithful to her husband because they just had to know. They needed to know that this child is not yours. It was from this affair that I had on the boat. Even though that person that she had the affair with on the boat was the hero in disguise. So yeah, it was bad. It was so bad. I mean, I learned things about perfume and that agree thing that I never want to learn about again. So sad because the set bag was amazing, but other than that, yeah, no, very bad. And I don't know, I think I'm unhauling all my Judith Ivory's because it kind of put me off of the author, to be honest. Because people like love this book by her, and I'm like, okay, well, if everyone loves it, so like, I don't think this is for me because this was bad. This was really bad. So we have that knocked off my historical romance TBR. So there we go. Now, last and certainly least, that is How Does It Feel by Janine O'Reilly. Yes, this was a 1 star, another 1 star. I absolutely loathe this book. Loathe it. I mean, it's right up there with Beast by Judith Ivory, but I loathe this one. This is where TikTok failed me. And I'm really disappointed because this one, I bought this and pre-ordered it because I'm like, ooh, because you know me, I will buy almost series so I can bench them and read them. Yeah, because this was so bad, I wasn't even going to attempt to try this one. So that one was a waste. So this is where it did not work in my favor. So the odds were not in my favor this time. This one was a bonkers plot. I'll be the first one to say, I love bonkers plots. Sometimes I'm okay if it's going to be unhinged, but at least if it's well developed and established and has a baseline, that's fine. Like, yeah, the characters, the writing, the plot kind of makes sense. This one felt, let me just say, okay, So the heroine is a scientist in our world, and she is studying these moths. And so one time she's been seeing back in her childhood that she had seen what she thought was fairies or whatever, but she's trying to get these moths because they do something or whatever. See, I really don't care anymore. So yeah, and at one point she does something at some point, and she gets locked into this portal, and then she falls onto this prince guy. And well, this is a bully romance, to be honest. He's a bully. He's mean. He's a villain. And she has to do some sort of thing, some sort of way, in that world. And yeah, there's a bog character, does very disturbing things while she's a prisoner, imprisoned. Yeah. Hero puts her in a jail cell. This weird bog character, which is right up on her, and that was disturbing and gross. And like this frog, he's like a frog. It's weird. It's weird. It was gross. It's weird. And yeah. And then all throughout the thing, she's telling you one thing, whatever, and then you're gonna this book is, I'm gonna say this is a very divisive book, or whatever the word is, for you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. It's polarizing. This is a very polarizing book, and there is a big cliffhanger at the end, and that was what made it what was going to be a 3-star turn into a 1-star, because it was just you know what would be great? I'm just going to put this here, even though it makes no sense. I said the exact opposite, showed that throughout the whole time of the book, and I'm just going to do a total 180 on you and say, hey, I lied for no reason, just to serve a cliffhanger and make it seem like it came out of nowhere. I'm sorry, it came out of nowhere because you just decided to be whatever. Just because you decided to say that rainbows and unicorns all of a sudden showed up to have a tea party, okay? That's not a cliffhanger. That's not what happened. But you know what I mean? It's nonsensical. It made no sense. And it's very, very infuriating that you literally made it up. And I don't mean you made it up. Obviously, it's fiction. Obviously, this came out of somebody's head. But it wasn't developed. Not even well thought out of. This is a hardcover, and it's literally thin. I mean, I'm finding that if the books, if they're not CW fun, and they're this thin, like, they're not for me. I need a little bit more than just whatever that was. Like, whatever this was. Like, no. If you want to read it, it's fine. You do what you want. So bad. I'm trying not to be mean. Am I being mean? I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to be mean. But it's funny. Now, the cherry on the top of this crap pie here is the funniest thing. Is I feel like I'm alone and not liking this book, because all of my booktube friends that have liked this book, or ones that I follow that I have very similar taste in most of the time, love this book. They loved it. What the heck, guys? Come on. This is where I feel like I'm crazy. I'm like, how am I alone and not liking this book? All right, well, that is it. That's all the negativity we took. If you're still here, I am so proud of you. All right, so that is it. we're done with the negative. This is the only one and only video that I'm going to make this negative about all the books I read in the year. It's going to be the one time a year because I don't want to do this again, even though I was probably highly entertaining and in a not so funny-ish way. So I don't know. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, I'm sorry if you liked any of these books. I just wasn't to my taste. To each their own. You read what you want. You like what you want. It's okay. Who cares? These are just my opinion, and I'm one person on this earth that didn't like these books. So let me know down below. If you want, go ahead and let me down below. If you also didn't like any of these books, let me know. And if, in positive note, if you think I didn't like one of these books, but I might like a similar book, I would love that rec. Or another book by the authors that I might like by in that series. So you let me know. But like, hey, you didn't like this one, but did you try this one by this author or this series by that author? So maybe, because maybe I picked a dud. I don't know. You let me know. Now, if you made it this far into the video and you don't want to let me know that, or you don't want to comment anything, then please go ahead and leave me a poop emoji. Because these were poopers. These were poopers. Well, thank you guys for watching. As always, I will have my links down below in the description box. My Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Amazon wishlist. And I will see you guys in the next one.